Good evening. Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, October 2nd. I'm just out from my evening stroll, trying to get a few steps, burn off some calories, and go walk to the mailbox, which is down the end of a long road. Anyway, apparently the government shutdown is still going on. My wife is a federal employee, so she is on furlough. She's doing some things from home that are still in the pipeline, but everybody's with her. It's going to be like a paid vacation. But I thought about something. The Democrats are pretty much holding up the works right now, and the sticking point is $1.5 trillion. What they call, they're trying to say it's health care and all this shit, but it's basically money for illegal aliens. Now, when people use the term undocumented immigrant, that is a buzzword for illegal alien, because we do have legal immigrants in this country. We do have legal aliens. We have people here on student visas. But nevertheless, I find it weird that we have a lot of people, Democrats especially, talk about how we have, too much poverty. We have too many poor people. But how do you rectify that when you can't take care of your own citizens by importing 20 million more poor people? And I don't mean that as a slam on immigrants, because without our population, native population that is, having enough people to replenish ourselves, well, we're probably, you're going to have some level of immigration. But anyway, I don't want to get in the weeds about that. But first they say, well, there's no, illegal aliens aren't eligible for any kind of federal benefits. Well, then when they find out that they really are getting it, well, it's not that many of them, it's a small percentage. Then when they find out it's really a bigger percentage than they want to admit, then they shift and pivot to something else and say, well, you just want tax cuts for billionaires. You can't get them nailed down on anything. But basically, the truth, that Mike Johnson kind of hinted at it, but the truth is that if somebody is here and they're in the country illegally, many states are giving them benefits, okay? But they're getting reimbursed from the federal government. And that's kind of like your dad saying, well, I'm going to give you $20, but I don't want you to spend it on beer. I want you to spend it on gas for the car, because you really need that. So you, oh, nothing in the mailbox. Okay. Wow. The post office isn't shut down, by the way. But anyway, you will have people say, well, here's $20, don't spend it on beer, put gas in the car. Well, it's fungible money, so you just take the money that your dad gave you and you go ahead and put gas in the car. Then you take the $20 you already had and you spend it on beer. So it's sort of like Planned Parenthood. Oh, we don't spend money on abortions, but they'll take federal money and they'll spend it on rent, janitorial service, office expenses or whatnot. So it's still, anyway, it's political speak. And you'll have them saying, well, we're going to cut the budget. Well, they never cut it. They reduce the amount of the increase. And I'm not any shill for the Republican Party here. They're not very good. They can always snatch victory or snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. They always find a way to do that. But, it's like the Democrats are in the driver's seat right now. Chuck Schumer could end all this with a phone call if he wanted to. And they need 60 votes to break the logjam. They can't just do it with a majority. So you hear people say, well, the Republicans control the House, the Republicans control the Senate, and there's a Republican majority on the Supreme Court, and there's a Republican president. You hear that all the time. But the reality of it is, they need basically 7 Democrats to vote to release the logjam. And you have Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House, Republican, and you have Democrat Hakeem Jeffries. And they both are weighing in on this quite a bit. But really, the problem's in the Senate. You know, you have John Thune. Most people don't even know who he is. He's the Senate Majority Leader. He took over from Mitch McConnell. But you just have a kind of a logjam, but it's up to the Democrats. But the reality of it is the Democrats want illegal aliens in the country, and they want more illegal aliens on public assistance. If, just assume for a minute, the election had gone the other way and cackling Kamala had been president and she had a majority Democrat Congress in both chambers, they would have already passed nationalized, socialized medicine, and they would have already kept the border open, and they would have given everybody here amnesty, whether they're legal or not. That likely would have happened, and we'd be in a far worse predicament now than we are today. It would be even worse. But I can't stand the de facto Republican slogan is vote for us because we suck less. I don't think that's a winning strategy. And, you know, Donald Trump can always be counted on to insert his foot right into his mouth. And he can be on the right side of an issue, but he just screws up. He articulates it the wrong way. We're not in a good place right now, but I imagine they're probably gonna solve this logjam over the weekend, and the Republicans are gonna throw them a bone, and the Democrats will, you know, they'll probably find a way to kick the can down the road with a continuing resolution, and that'll put us close to Thanksgiving. Then it's gonna come out like, oh, you don't want people to be paid. And I saw in the news, there was a TSA worker, Homeland Security, a guy, I guess he was a guy in an airport, and he was from Georgia, and he was saying how, you know, people don't have money to get gas, we're not going to get paid, and yada, yada, yada. But he's from Georgia, okay? Who are the 2 United States senators from Georgia? Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, who both voted for the shutdown. So it's like, come on, people, pull your heads out of your asses and realize you're all being scammed. It's so frustrating. But most people don't really understand how these things work. And the debt isn't going down. You know, Trump can say we have some money coming in from tariffs. Yeah, but, you know, we're $37 trillion in debt. We face 180 to about 250 trillion in unfunded future liabilities. And the interest on the national debt is over $1 trillion a year. It's about 20% more than the entire national defense budget. Or I should say the war budget. So, you know, we can't tax ourselves out of this. And people are saying, well, we want free health care. Well, they tried socialized medicine in 3 different states. I believe it was Colorado, Vermont, and New Hampshire. And I think even California touted it, which would be constitutional. If they could do it with their own jurisdictional taxation, they could do it. But they said, oh, well, we can't afford it. But these idiots think that somehow they could afford it at the federal level. You know what it is? They want to finance it with debt. They want to promise everybody more free stuff, and they want to add it to the debt, pile it on the debt, let future generations worry about it. Well, my grandson, who's an infant, almost a year old, he's probably got $100,000 worth of debt on his back, and he didn't have a freaking thing to do with creating any of it. And that makes it just, people, wake up, people. We're being sold down the river, and, you know, just print more money, debauch the currency. And, you know, you have, you know, Trump sometimes does some good things, but then he says, well, we need to lower interest rates. You know, it'll make the stock market go better and the economy get better. Well, all that's going to do is spur inflation. And then you run into the same situation where people can't afford anything. So, well, let's elect Democrats. They'll make it more affordable. Which, in Democrat speak, that means just shift the cost from somebody else. Make somebody else pay for it, is what that means. You know, just subsidize it. But I can't think of any instance where subsidizing things makes it cheaper. It actually makes things cost more money. I just, the level of education about economics in this country and civics is just abysmal. And we have a contentious governor's race going on here in Virginia, and the Democrat, one of her slogans is, well, I'm going to fight against Donald Trump. Well, you're trying to be governor of a state, okay? That's not your cause celeb to fight against the president because he's in the opposite party. I understand some of the Republicans were trying to say they were fighting against Joe Biden, but you're trying to run a state. Your battle is within the state legislature, you know, and the governor we have running, the candidate we have running as a Democrat, just wants to make us more like California. Well, if you want to live like they do in California, and you want to have bad regulations, no ability to defend yourself, sky-high taxes, and oppressive regulations everywhere, then get in your car and move your ass to California. Don't turn Virginia into California. This is a beautiful state. We want to keep it that way. Jeez, for crying out loud, people, just, you know, think a little bit. Don't just listen to what politicians say. Watch what they do, because it's really pretty scary. It's like, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain over there. I mean, this comes down to, you know, you look at, and again, I'm not in any position to stand up for the Republican Party, but it seems like we're in a position where they're likely to do a lot less damage. Instead of doing something good, we have to vote for people who are going to inflict the least amount of pain. And in a country as powerful and large and diverse as the United States, you know, we deserve better than that. We have all the recipes necessary to be successful. Thousands of miles of coastline, you know, abundant energy reserves, a fairly decent transportation infrastructure, you know, lots of airports, arable land, navigable rivers. We have everything we need to be successful, but it requires good leadership, and we're lacking in that area right now. But hang on to your hats, people. It's going to be a fun couple of days, but eventually they'll get this stuff straight. So just keep your fingers crossed, and we can get through this impasse. And then we're going to have the same old argument in November when the can they kick down the road called the continuing resolution expires. Have a great night, people.